You are running one of the most successful foundations in California. It's called Ahmanson Foundation
No, it's called the Ahmanson Foundation.
because it's unique.
Well, I don't know why they put the THE in there, but it is part of our branding.
So we want to hear all about it. This foundation has a big history, and you're coming from the business background, and you got into this. You come from banking.
I do. I come from home savings, where I ended my career as the chief underwriter, which means I was responsible for all the high-risk loans funded in the state of California. And I started there as a part-time teller while I went to college. And the foundation was started in 1952 by Howard and Dorothy Ahmanson. Howard was a transplant from Omaha, Nebraska. He came out here to go to USC, which was kind of a mistake. He arrived at a train station, got in a taxi, and asked to go to UCLA. The taxi driver actually dropped him off at USC. He enrolled, and the rest was history from there.
Wow. So he went to the wrong university
He went to
because
the
of
wrong
the tax.
university, but
But it turned out to be the right one, right?
especially for USC, yes.
Tell us more about the foundation. How did he decide to start the foundation?
He decided to start the foundation because he found that there was not a social fabric in Los Angeles like there was in Nebraska and really throughout the Midwest. And I think that his charitable nature beyond that, it actually started back in about 1882. His grandfather, Johann, was the first Ahmanson to set foot in the United States. He wrote, I think it was February 3rd, 1882, a letter to his son, Willie, when Johann was in New York. And in that letter, he talked about the poor little boys and children that were roaming the streets of New York. And it was right after the Great Fire in January, and he talked about the devastation of that. So that is already showing a charitable mind within the Ahmanson family. When he was 6 years old in Omaha, Nebraska, on an Easter Sunday, as a matter of fact, his family had to get down into the basement because of a tornado that ripped through their neighborhood. So when they came out, everything was fine with them, but he witnessed at 6 years old all the devastation that happened there. So when he comes out to California, obviously decades later, I think that sense of giving back to the community is just ingrained in him. And that's now been passed down through our generations.
And your family got involved with this, like your father got involved, right?
He did. When Howard died tragically on a car trip in 1968, there was no one left to run the foundation. And my father was strongly encouraged by some of the other advisors at the time, namely a person named Franklin Murphy, who was then the chancellor of UCLA, the school that Howard didn't go to by mistake. At that time, my father was in charge of the construction for home savings, and they're now Chase buildings, but it's a jewel box design with lots of great artwork that people admire to this day. And Franklin Murphy said to him, "There is nothing you're ever going to do in your lifetime that's more important than being president of this foundation." And that's why he took the job. And
So
my
he
father,
dropped everything to just join the foundation?
He did. He still kept working with H.F. Ahmanson and Company. It wasn't a full-time job at that time, but as time progressed and my father made the foundation more professional, it then became a full-time job.
He said this is the most important thing you should be doing. Can you tell us more about that? Did your father ask why, or what was the reason that?
Well, the reason is our funding areas are education, art and culture, and health and human services. And while we are not providing direct services, we are assisting those who do. So when it comes from everything from enjoying the humanities to day-to-day human suffering, the foundation has a footprint somewhere in those areas.
And do you guys raise money? How does a foundation like yours operate? Do you have people that are giving, or do you have a few donors that gave? And
we're a private foundation. We have an endowment that we use to support our activities. And I believe that we are not able to raise funds. We can still accept them if one should so choose, but we don't do fundraising.
And what was it like for you? Because you grew up with this foundation, like your father was involved with it and he was running it. So what was it like for you?
Oh, I'm an idiot. I grew up thinking my father was an architect because he'd come home with blueprints all the time. So I had no idea what the foundation was doing until later when I started seeing the names on buildings. First, it was people calling and asking me to get them free tickets to the Ahmanson Theater, which I couldn't then and I'm still not going to do. Because if I got you free tickets, that would be because I'm paying for them, and I'm too cheap for that. And it wasn't until really later that I understood the significance of it and the importance of it. It's a brand, but we as a family, we don't keep that in front of us as who we are. We're individual people.
What was the moment like where can you take us to that moment where you realized that this is more than the name and the buildings and this?
We made a grant to a breast mammography center. And a woman came up to me and said, "Ooh, I still get misty." She came up to me and said, "You saved my life because of this 3D breast imaging. It caught a tumor that the traditional ones wouldn't have caught." That was the moment I thought, wow, this is really something. And this is something, a place that needs to be protected. And the donors, Howard and Dorothy, what they wanted us to do for Los Angeles needs to be preserved. And I'm just a steward of what they started.
And is this a time when your father was still running the foundation, or this is the time you already were involved with it?
Shortly after I started working there. I came on in about 2000 as a contingency plan for my father, who really passed away unexpectedly. And then I became president after that. But my career through Home Savings was management positions. So running a foundation is very much like running a loan office. So I had quite a bit of experience in that.
Tell us more about it. How is it similar when you're like lending money versus?
Well, on a grant request, like a loan request, we ask for financial information, who the leadership is, what do you do, what's the request for, why is it important? And on a loan, you're asking for ability, willingness, and security and equity. So we're kind of asking the same questions. This little bit of a spin that we bring to it is, in the grant-making world, I'm a grant maker, and I'm up on this pedestal. And all the grant seekers are down here because they want a big fat check.
They're asking for money, right?
Right. Well, we look at it a little bit differently. We look at it as, you are our customer, and we want you to come to us first and with the best projects. So we want an open, honest line of communication, because I don't look at them as grant seekers with this dynamic. I look at them as customers with this dynamic. I have to put out a certain amount of grant dollars per year, and I need customers to do that. And that's why we try to treat our customers, our grantees, with understanding and patience.